Hey class, how you guys doing today? I am just setting a couple things up and we will go over kind of what this week is going to look like. Sweet. Okay, awesome. So today what we're going to do is we are going to go over all of your custom 3-scene animations, and I'm going to give you guys feedback on these videos that you've created, and possibly show you some techniques that would lend themselves to what you guys have created in your videos. And then we are going to go over any other work that's been handed in late. I think there were a couple Eve ones that we have here. Let me check my canvas real quick. There's a few Eve ones that I want to go over, and then I'm gonna hold off on going over because I want to take my time with these 3-scene animation ones. So I'm gonna hold off on going over your animated logos. I'm possibly going to do that Thursday after your participation questions, and or next Tuesday. The one thing that I do want to get to on Thursday's class is starting your guys' reel and putting that reel together and showing you guys kind of how to do that and the guidelines and parameters for that project. Remember, the reel is going to be essentially it's like your final. There's no exam in this class, no final exam, and so this is like your final project, right? And so we will go over all of like everything that you have to understand with that project on Thursday, so you guys can kind of get a head start. And then I think after that we're going to be kind of looking at the reels, making some revisions to it, because we have how many classes left? Let me see. We have, after today, we have 1 2 3 4 5, really I think maybe 6 classes left, if that. And so I want to give you guys some time to have edits to that reel and really putting all your really editing your past work that I've given you feedback on, and implementing those updates into the videos that you are going to be putting into your reel. And so I just want to give you guys time to get a head start on that. And then the rest of the time we will probably go over the color scope project, which will be kind of similar to this, where you will pick a specific color and then you'll give some facts about that color, and we'll talk, more in depth about that. And then you integrate both 2D and 3D graphics together to create a cohesive video. So, let's just get started in here. I have everyone's 3-scene animations all pulled up, and we will start. I think I'm still having some weird audio feedback. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay, if you're in the chat. Okay, got that all pulled up. I'm trying to pull up my audio managing app. Who knows? Let me do this. I might have to mute my mic so you guys don't hear the playback. Let me.
The fig wasp has an unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. A pollen-covered female wasp will climb through the tiny hole at the bottom.
I'm gonna restart this. I had to. The levels were kind of crazy on here, so. All right, here's Eric's, and he did his on the, which wasp was it? There was like the fig wasp, but that's right. That's what he said.
The fig wasp has an unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. A pollen-covered female wasp will climb through the tiny hole at the bottom of the fig fruit to lay her eggs, ripping her wings off and entombing herself in the process. The newly hatched wasps will eat their way through the fig fruit to begin the cycle anew. The fig wasp has an unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. The fig wasp has an unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. A pollen-covered female wasp will climb through the tiny hole. The fig wasp.
I am not sure why it keeps. What is happening with my audio? Okay, sorry about that. So, Eric, the first thing that I noticed about your video that I really enjoyed is obviously the kind of paper cutout type of style that you have going on here. I think it's really interesting. I haven't seen it done in prior classes before, and that use of texture, the stylization of this video is just it's really neat. I think that there are a couple things that could benefit as changes in your video, but overall, let me hear the ending. Let me try and mute this again and play it. My mic. I'm going to mute my mic. Just 1 second.
An unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner.
Okay, yeah. That's one thing that I noticed is here at the end of your um at the end of your video, it's like repeating your audio. So I don't know if you have I don't know why it's repeating that audio. Um but you definitely want. Okay, that's cool. It animates out. You definitely want to take that audio out of there. I think that the audio seems in my headphones. Let me try this again.
At the bottom of the fig fruit to lay her eggs, ripping her wings off and entombing herself in the process. The newly hatched wasps will eat their way through.
The music is really cool. I enjoyed the track. The only thing I would say is maybe turn the track down 1, maybe 2 notches. I would maybe say 1, just so your voice stands out a little bit more as far as like the levels go on that. But yeah, it sounds really good. It's really smooth. The voiceover is really nice. Well paced. The end here on the credits, I would have, I want you guys to keep in mind hierarchy. I know that you separated it here because of your imagery kind of being balanced a little bit more in one corner and the other corner. I would maybe keep animation by Eric Allred together, right? Making sure that you want your text to be aligned appropriately and keeping in mind hierarchy, right? Using font weights to determine the hierarchy. And then you guys can take out the track name of there and just put it in the description of your videos if you want to. I took that out. I was rewatching some past stuff in some other classes, and I think that it would lend itself to remove that from the actual video and just put the credits inside of your description, like when you post it on Slack or when you post it onto YouTube or onto whatever social channel you're using, and that's when you enter in that. And then put these obviously together, and they need to be, and then so you might have to rearrange this a little bit differently, but I think you could do that. I really like, let me see here, your use of
The
like
fig wasp has an unusual
stop motion type.
relationship with its co.
I see that you're using hold keyframes here for the paper when you're changing the essentially the rotation. I think you do it maybe once and then loop it. 1, 2, 3. Let me try it again.
The fig wasp has an unusual relationship with its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. A pollen.
No, I think it looks the very, I would say, I was going to say to maybe rotate it and turn it around and stuff a little bit more, but I think that that would distract from the rest of the video. I see you have on the wings of the wasp and the body of the wasp, you also have texture. I maybe wish that texture would stand out slightly more. Because it would match, I think, the video a little bit. I mean, dealer's choice, right? So you can decide to do that or not. But I think that it does look good. I mean, that wouldn't be a major thing if you didn't change that. The one thing I can say is this scene is not centered. Let me turn on my title action safe here. And so what you're going to want to do is you want to center this entire bug, like bring him over to, you know, obviously to that area right here, right? Center him in the middle of the comp. Let me scrub through again. Get some wing flapping in here. You know, you've got this really cool bug, like this insect, right? That has multiple opportunities for you to animate these. And we don't really see it. You know, the animation on this part that stands out is just the stop rotations. I would, and they're opposite of each other, which is fine, but I would do, you know, a couple wing flaps with this, maybe make the antennas move a little bit. And you could even do it if you want to keep that like consistency of the stop motion. That's okay. I mean, like, we don't all, you know, sometimes you don't see that stuff, especially if you're like zoomed into your comp, right? Like if you're, what is it? Like if you're working at like this and you're accidentally over on your comp and you're like, oh, it looks like it's centered, right? It's like centered in the middle of this. So that kind of stuff happens when you're working. You just want to make sure that you pull out to the fit and turn on that title action safe while you're working. Like, I think that you guys should mostly have the title action safe on. Again, that's your kind of guides to what, remember we talked about screen sizes and aspect ratios, and these are the aspect ratios that you see on televisions, right? And that will be under this little button here. It's called your title action save. Work with that on all the time, and then turn it off when you don't need it, and then turn it back on, and that way you are within these bounds at all time. Not so worried about this part being off the bounds, right? It's more about your main stuff being off of there. But I would center this, get a wing flap in there. Now, is the wasp's like tail, Eric, is it flexible? Or is it a tail or is it a stinger? I'm curious. I guess the anatomy of this wasp is more interesting than I was thinking. But yeah, wing flaps in there, and at least like you can do the antennas. And what I was getting to, and I don't know if I finished this thought, but you could do them in kind of like a stop motion action to see what it's like. And if it doesn't work, if it looks too much, then I would go in and ease those keyframes, right? But like this whole thing looks very stop motion feel. It is the stinger. Um, is it flexible? I guess let me look up what this thing looks like. uh, the pig wasp. Oh wow, it's like a really, it is long. Let me bring this over. Images. Huh. Interesting. On the life cycle. Wow, that's so crazy looking. It's flexible to do this. So it kind of reminds me of like a dragonfly, the tail of like a dragonfly. Ah, non-pollinator. Interesting. I don't know if you'd want to move that then. I would maybe focus on the antennas and the wings on this to give it, you know, a little bit more. You could even just do like kind of just like a quick, because butter or like insects that have wings like other than butterflies, right? Like I think it's like a quick like fluttering motion, so it'd have to be kind of fast, just like really quick rather than kind of slower like the butterfly flapping was. I guess you'd maybe have to watch a video to see. um I mean, this is why we're here today. Big wasp. Or even like when they're settled on something and they kind of just slightly move, like just a little bit, you could do that. I want to see if they do something like that. Oh, you could almost do like a transparent wing too. You could just drop the opacity down. Okay, come on, I want more video. Yeah, just kind of like a slower, it looks like a slower flapping motion. So you can do that. Let me see the rest of it. There was a couple other things maybe that we could incorporate. What do you say here? I'm gonna play it.
With its co-evolutionary partner, the fig tree. A pollen-covered female wasp will climb through the tiny hole at the bottom of the fig fruit to lay her eggs, ripping.
You could almost like, okay, so very slow, like subtle animations, right, will lend itself to this as well. Like that whole technique I showed last week about the using that CC bended effect, which would, you could almost like have the tree just slightly moving, right? Very subtle motion in the background just kind of will lend itself to the entire video. So it's not the first thing that you're obviously, you don't want it to like bend over a lot, like very slight rotation. So what am I talking about? Let me add a new composition. Tests. Okay. So you have like your, let's change this color to something that a branch would be. Kind of like this brown. And we will draw kind of like a branch. Let me zoom out. Click off, click back on, have another section. Come on now. Right, so we have a branch. Rename this layer. Really cool stuff though, Eric. I'm definitely into the style that you picked. Let's change where the anchor point. Let me show you guys. Let me change this color of this layer to like the green so you can see the anchor point is right up here, and let's kind of move it down to here. So I'm gonna hit Y, drag that down so that we can just get some maybe even just very slight rotation on it. Right, it's got move it here, just very subtle. I would do 2, maybe 3, and then I would just obviously like you would have to extend this or change the size scaling of your object, and then just maybe back every few seconds. I think this might even be a little too long. I'm just gonna copy and paste this so you can use that loop ping pong. You can also do, yeah, very slow, very subtle is kind of what I'm talking about there. So you notice that motion, but it's not like the first thing that you're really paying attention to. And then let's say you have the fruit hanging off of that, right? So I'm going to draw a smaller branch. Let me go back into my pen tool. I'm going to change the size of this, drop it down to like 80. Oh, that drops that whole thing down. Undo that. Crank that back up to like 115, 110 works. And I would have to draw separate for some reason. Object here. And then let's say we have the fig, right? Let's draw our fig. Holding down shift. This is just a rough version of it. Remove this stroke. Bring that over here. Okay. Let me change. I would update the anchor point. The circle is obviously representing the fig. I'm not gonna, I mean, I could draw the thing, or what I would do is I would, convert this to a Bezier path and then just take this vertex and move it up a little bit and would create more of like the egg or pear shape kind of. But let me connect these to each other. So actually, this entire thing I created includes the branch on here, I think. If I go down into my contents, just the ellipse. Ah, that doesn't, here is the second branch. Let me rename that one. Branch 2. And this is the fig. Do that. I would obviously connect the second branch, parent the second branch to the first branch, and then parent this fig to the branch number 2. And then while this is moving, I would sequence another kind of maybe rotation of the second branch or even the fig. But let's move this, the anchor point up to the top here, because that's where we want the motion to come from. And then we'll hit rotation, keyframe that. Then I'm going to just, let's see if I want to add, yeah, we'll just do the same like timing on it essentially. Okay. Kind of maybe go this way a little bit. 3. then move it back here, copy paste, and then sequence these. So it's select that and move this over a few frames so that while this one goes down, that's too subtle. The animation, maybe because it's going the same way, it looks like that. Let me try doing it opposite. So instead of positive 3, let's do like -3, -5, maybe. Yeah. The opposite seems to work a little bit better, and then sequence it maybe, or you can have and then I would let me see here. How do you have this? You could I would just, I mean, you don't even obviously have to make another branch. I would just parent this the fig to here and then just add a little bit of that. And then you could add that, like if you pre-comped this, you could add the CC Bendit effect. But then it would mess up this animation. So I'm just making you aware of that, right? You would have to do this part separately. If you add that CC Bendit into there. Because remember, anything that here you make it move, that it's going to affect the way this works too. So you might have to get a little creative on how your layering happens within your pre-comps. If you do that, because you don't want to add that bend it effect to this and then it be affecting like the actual wasps or this. Once this starts to go, like you would have to stop that whole rotation animation or move this along with it, right? So there's that to think about. Let me go back here and play this again. This part right here. This is neat where he moves down and then he drills a hole.
A pollen-covered female wasp will climb.
I feel like the pollen, are these little specks in the background the pollen? Because to me, she doesn't look like she is covered in pollen. So I would maybe update this imagery to show that, add like a little bit of the wing motion into here. And instead of like even the flapping of the wings, like in Z space, what you could do is just a rotation of the wings. Would maybe look a little bit differently. And having them separated out, this second set of like wings versus this one. They're supposed to be little stars. Okay, that's cool. Then I would just put like maybe kind of like she's dusted in pollen somehow. Maybe a little bit of a texture of that onto the female. Because you mentioned it here.
Uncovered female wasp will climb through the tiny hole at the bottom of the fig fruit.
Maybe indicate a little hole at the bottom of the fig fruit here. Just like a circle, like a half circle that's illustrated onto this or like masked onto it. You could do that so that we just see that little circle, like she has somewhere she's going.
To lay her eggs, ripping her wings off and entombing herself in the process.
That is so crazy that she like rips her own wings off. And then this part, right? You don't want this part to show up until she is like in that whole area. So, let me think of how you could do this. You could either do like a couple options, right? You could do a cut, where it cuts from this scene to this scene, but maybe punched in more, right? Punched in meaning you're dollying your camera in, you're zooming in on the scene, you're punching in on that scene. To like a closer view of this, like if I were to take your video down here, where is it? Right up here. If I were to bring it in here and go over, bring it to this part. Let's go right here. And instead of that sliding away, like when she is going to go in that hole right there, I would do a cut. Let me see here. Shift Control D to splice the layer. And then right here, I would have it be at this part of the scene. This is an option. You don't have to do that, but this is an option to hide those wings maybe, or to get that wing, because you don't want to see the wings at this point, because it makes it look like it's part of the fig. And so here what I would do is punch in on the scene. So scale, zoom in on this, and then obviously change the position so that you could see it more. So then it goes from like this view to this view quickly, and then you can see more close up like what's happening in the video. Let me change I have my thing to 1/4, and we can change it to full here. All right.
Her wings off and entombing herself in the process. The newly hatched was will eat their way.
What transition did you use here? Just a wipe transition. Okay, cool. Right there. So you want to make sure that the other videos there, when this wipe transition occurs, I was like, what is happening? So you just have to lengthen your layer. See, so you do punch in right here too. So the other option, right? Because you already have that same punched in view of this, is to like put this one further back, right? So you just kind of flip everything. Or let's think of a different technique here we could use. With just some simple masking maybe. And I want to think you could essentially make this look longer, or take this like cutout hole of the inside of the fig and move it up a little bit more to show the entire wasp like in here, right? So that you basically scale her down, or move this up and move her up, and make this tunnel a little bit longer so it covers up these wings. And let me see, like, so that her whole entire body is inside of this area. Is this the pollen? Yeah, make that a little bit more prominent. Maybe make it a little, if that is the pollen, Eric, I would just increase the color on it. Or I'm sorry, change the color a little bit. Maybe make it more yellow, of what we would generalize pollen to look like, right? So it just kind of stands out and pops off of her body a little bit more. Yeah, maybe I would do that. And then you could keep that whole, like the whole front of the fig moving up and off of this. So I would just lengthen the tunnel here, and then move this up that way. Whatever is going to be like less work for you to do, and whatever you feel would lend itself a little bit more to this, I would be okay with. But we just have to solve this issue right here of the tails showing, the wings showing. So
Ripping her wings off and entombing herself in the process.
Oh, I guess it won't let me do that. Okay. Fit this.
Wings off and entombing herself.
Neat.
Was will eat their way through the fig fruit to begin the cycle anew.
This part right here, there's no animation happening on this, so maybe I would just cut the scene slightly short here, or add more of these wasps in the background. Maybe drop down the opacity of these wasps in the background so we pay attention to this one a little bit more. And then vary maybe the size of them, right? And then continue it going through this section right here. So you don't have this few seconds without anything, or this second without anything. And then you can move into this. But other than that, really good job. Really good first pass on this, Eric. Impressive. Lots of work. Okay, let's move on to Brian's. I also have to keep track of time because I have 2 hours and I have all these to go to. So, all right, Brian, let's see what yours is on. I'm going to hit mute on my camera.
The Argentinosaurus was the largest animal to ever walk the planet. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 90 to 100 million years ago in South America. The Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons and could reach over 120 feet in length, eating as much as 2,000 pounds of plants every day. The Argentinosaurus was the largest animal to ever walk the planet. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 90 to 100 million years ago in South America. The Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons and could reach over 120 feet in length, eating as much as 2,000 pounds of plants every day.
I'm impressed with what you guys have made so far. Like, these are cool. The Argentinosaurus. I love to see the dinosaurs too in here. Space themes, dinosaurs. It's like just watching National Geographics. I enjoy them all. Really good job, Brian. Well, there's just a couple things. First of all, I really like how you handled kind of the sun here. I don't know if you need the rays to stretch out all the way across this, but whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But you have like this kind of bokeh effect happening, or the not bokeh, but like the sun like spots that are kind of showing up here, which makes it look really cool, really bright, gives it a sense of like heat, like hot, like it's hot there wherever he is. Good walk cycle for the dinosaur. Let me see here.
It was the largest animal to ever walk the planet. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 90 to 100 million years ago.
Yeah, good job on there. Here I would maybe change up I'm not sure. Sometimes my screen, the calibration of color on my screen is a little bit funny, but maybe give some variation on the gradient on these leaves so we can see kind of the difference a little bit more in them, because right now it's very tonal overall, and as far as design goes, we want to see a little bit of that variation in there. So maybe making some of the leaves more of it like a yellowish green, or just changing where the gradient is on some of them, and then duplicating that one and just giving us 2 different variations of the same leaf would be fine. And then I would also cover up these spots right here where you can see there's another spot right here as well. Making sure that you have another leaf right there so it covers up that. So then you get that full transition. And then instead of it pulling off and wiping like that, maybe what you could do is just kind of group some of the leaves and separate them from the middle. And so one section goes, oh, no, I don't want to do that. So one section goes this way and the other goes this way. So it opens up from the center. If it did that though, let me see, based on your composition of here. You can if you want. I think it'd be cool that way. But I can understand why you did this. Maybe, let me see what else I would do. I saw in the video a little earlier, like his head moves as well. So maybe giving a little bit more. The head moves appropriately to the walk cycle, right? Or like the neck, especially because you have to think about that big neck moving appropriately with the walk cycle. cool on the shadow here. I enjoy the shadow in the right spot too, based on where the sun is. A lot of thought put into this video, Brian, and I can see that. The school bus one is really cool. Maybe an eye blink in this one. Let me see. This is neat. And then I think it's cool how your transition wipes. It's like a page turn transition. We can maybe do this, think of this a little differently. What could we do for this scene to bring a little bit more visual interest? Let me hear what you say.
Million years ago in South America, the Argentinosaurus weighed over 100 tons and could reach over 120 feet in length, eating as much as 2,000 pounds of plants every day. Over 100 tons and could reach over 120 feet in length.
You could almost put a separation in your voice over there so it's not so quick together, and you can give it a little bit of breathing room because you're only at 25 seconds, so you can just expand the length of this a little bit more. So what I would do is here where you're discussing like the length and the weight of the dinosaur, it'd be cool to somehow incorporate that into I know you have it visually here with the school buses, but this would, let me think. You could do
tons and could reach over 120 feet in length.
Over 120 feet in length. Here's where I would have that transition happen. Your circle wipe, your circle transition here, I would maybe, there's too many transitions going on in the video, right? You really want to not get, a lot of students do this in the first part, is they get a little crazy with the transitions and they want to put transitions in for every scene, and it doesn't need to be in every scene, right? So it's like making a recipe, and in a recipe you want things to be balanced. You want your ingredients balanced within that recipe, and you don't want to just dump a bunch of one thing in there because then it obviously overpowers it, right? And so the transitions, while I'm watching this and I start to like notice it a little bit more, we don't have to have so many of them. So maybe from this transition, I would maybe pick one of the transitions to do. This one's neat. I enjoy this one. And I have a suggestion that you can do for this one that might be a little bit different here, where you're essentially using a mat, like a layer mask, to reveal the next scene. And it's a little bit more work, right? But they look really cool when you do it right. And so here I would maybe remove this transition from the first one to the second one, or have this be the circular transition, or just leave it at this wipe and then this one. The thing I was going to say is that with transitions, maybe not to have such hard edges, right? To maybe feather this out a little bit so that it's not so noticeable as a single. Let me see how we would do that. So, let's do that real quick. Okay. So here we would have, let's create two scenes, a solid. We'll do this one like a dark green. Okay, we're not going to show it. Where's it at? Weird. This should work. that composition? I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Hold on, let me. Let me try and draw something in the middle of this, right? Yeah, what the heck? I guess let me delete this and try adding a new comp. Test, okay. Yeah, not sure why that happened. Okay, let's create a new scene right here. Here we have a solid. We have a circle in between this. Click off this. Draw that circle, holding down shift. And then we have another scene that we want to reveal. Let's say we're going to cut this right here. So holding down Alt and hitting this square bracket on these. And let's duplicate, or let's create a new solid. We'll change the color to, I don't know, like an orange. And then we'll create another, we'll create a star on this. Oop, that was a mask. I don't want that. I want a shape of a star. Holding down shift. B, move it. Change the color to yellow or something. Okay. And then I will take these two and Alt square bracket to kind of shorten that. Change these ones to yellow. Change these ones to the green so we can see them. Okay. And you wanted to create like your, we'll do your like circle transition. So you can do that with a shape layer, right? You can create a circle. Let's create an ellipse tool here. Or create an ellipse. B, let's center that into the middle of our comp. Making sure the anchor point is centered. And then I'm going to scale this down to 0. Shift up to whatever we need to for it to fully cover the screen. That works fine. Let me now turn this one on, the layers, so that we can see them. You're going to want this layer to be fully under this one. We're going to reveal it with a track mat. Let's move this here and here. And I think that it would have to be, these would have to be pre-comped. Shift Control C. We'll just hit OK. I'll just do that here. And then let's add the track mat onto it, which is these. Shape layer 3. So that then this reveals this scene, right? Now you have like this drop down menu with the track mat, and now it'll be like, right, I would have this named, I don't know, circle transition, so that I knew what that was. And then you can do that. And I think, let's see if this works. If we add a Gaussian blur, it will have like a feathered edge. Where are my effects? Let's try this. Add this to here and increase that. Does not work with that. So let me think of a different way that we can do this. Let's remove this real quick. I don't think there's like a feathered edge. We would have to do this using, right, maybe a mask. So I would select this and grab a shape tool, making sure you want to select the layer that you want to reveal. And I would make sure that you are in mask mode here. Whenever you grab the layer and then you grab a shape tool, it's going to automatically default to like a mask mode. And I'm going to hold down shift and I'm just going to kind of draw this mask. Now, if you hold down control shift, it will draw it from the center, right? And so we can draw it from right here. And that should be, right? That gives that right here. We want the transition to happen in the space where they overlap. And so let's go to this. Under mask expansion, we can animate the expansion of the mask, right? So we can start it off in the negatives and keyframe that here. And then move to this spot right here. Go all the way up. And then you have this happening, right? Your transition. Well, the nice thing about this with the masks is that you can feather them. And so I would just do that right here. Increase the feather of it. 150 even. And that way it kind of slowly gives like this gradient look into it. I would maybe even drop this down to just 100. Looks a little bit it gives this interesting effect there in the first couple seconds, but it would happen quickly, right? So you wouldn't even see it. But then that's a way to get like a nice soft edge on your transitions versus like that hard edge you're seeing there. And then as far as I think the school bus thing, this is fine. Maybe consistently rotating the school bus wheels, but there's nothing on them to really show much that it'd be rotating. I think that just having the dinosaur in general on there, while he's walking, it looks good. Here is that's neat because he pulls down this. Like if there was another section of this tree attached, here, what you can do is essentially you create a mask over this layer, right? Let me show you. Let me take this into here. Delete these. Or this will be the scene that we're going to reveal. Let me move this over so that I can see the end. Okay, cool. You're here. Let's say that there's another piece of this tree or something over here. I mean, it wouldn't pull the entire tree down. No, don't even worry about that. This is pretty neat. I think this looks cool. I would maybe, like I was telling Eric, add some motion into these leaves so that it looks like he's kind of getting into the leaves a little bit more. And then maybe having some of those leaves stick out of his mouth, like he actually got like a cut, like a really fast, that switch shot that I was talking about with the ball, right? You could just make it happen quickly. So then all of a sudden the leaves just appear like they're in his mouth as well when he clamps down. And then I think that would be interesting to add here. But that's pretty cool. This one, I'm not sure what kind of transition this is. Let me see. Huh. You might be, I don't know, because it looks like it's trying to curl almost. Like, I don't know kind of really what's happening in this spot. I'd be interested to know what you're using here because this really doesn't work as well as maybe something here would. Let me see, not that one. delete. You could just have the cut happen here. That's kind of odd. I don't like that. Maybe it was Venetian blinds, like the vertical. I'm not sure. Let me know what you did here, and we can work on this transition a little bit more. But overall, really good job on this. Really good first pass on this. Cool, cool video, great information. Give us the space in between that. You guys can remember to like give these a little bit of breathing room, because you don't want the voiceover to sound like it's all squished together and a little too fast. You want it to have a little bit of that settling, right, when you're hearing the talking, or else it feels like it's rushing through, and we don't want to rush through, especially when we have such cool stuff on screen. So just keep that in mind, and that's just in general for all of you guys to really understand. All right, so we have Zoe's. Let me hit mute on my mic, and then we will play that.
In the heart of the Coral Sea lies the Great Barrier Reef, a wonderland of vibrant colors and diverse marine life stretching 1,429 miles along the Australian coast. This reef sustains an impressive amount of life, including over 1,500 species of fish, like these white-tailed bacillus. While a large part of the ecosystem is protected, pollution, climate change, and other factors endanger the reef's coral and biodiversity. In the heart of the Coral Sea lies the Great.
Cool. That's awesome. Fun fact. I have been snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef. And while it was an awesome experience, a lot of it is unfortunately dying off. And so it wasn't as grandiose as you would think a coral reef would be. So I think it's very important to, spread that message of how global warming really affects our oceans. Cool. Cool, Zoe. Good start on this. Let's I think the bag one at the end was cool. We can work, this will lend itself to that transition I was going to talk to Brian about. So we'll kind of go over this one. Here in the initial part, there's nothing really happening, and we need something to be happening on screen at all times. You can, let me hear what you say during this section.
In the heart of the Coral Sea lies the Great Barrier Reef, a wonderland of vibrant colors and diverse marine life stretching 14.
In the middle of the Great Barrier Sea
lies the Great Barrier Reef.
Here is where it would lend itself to maybe have this pop up, right? So we'll have Australia on the screen, and then you could have this, just, I would, first of all, maybe make this a little bit more of an organic looking shape and less blocky. And then just have this like fade in, right? You could do an opacity change there. You could have this kind of pop out or grow out from behind Australia, since it seems to match up around the tip of Australia up here. But we need some kind of motion happening. Maybe you have like some stuff happening in the water, right? Like think of those old school maps that you see, like a fantasy map almost. This could be just an idea for you. Obviously it's not a fantasy type thing, right? But and you could apply different stuff to it. But notice how like in these fantasy maps there's like little sections in here that have something that gives an idea of what the landmarks and structures and stuff look like in the area. Like the little nautical thing. And this is just some design ideas for you to give this scene a little bit more of a visual interest. Now, we also need to try and figure out.
In the heart of the Coral Sea lies the Great Barrier.
You could do in the heart of the Coral Sea, right? You could map out, maybe that's where you draw the outline of where the Coral Sea is, and then the Great Barrier Reef.
Great Barrier Reef, a wonderland of
Here, like, I mean, a wonderland of vibrant
colors and
colors and stuff like that. Mind you, I wasn't on, there's other parts obviously that are way more colorful and stuff. So I think that that's appropriate. And what you could do is maybe take some of this coral that you've drawn in this scene, or draw some more like pieces of coral that pop up into the scene, like scale into it, right? While you're saying this kind of stuff. And this could be instead of outlining the heart of the Coral Sea, like instead of outlining the Coral Sea, you could just do like a heart over here, right? Because you say the heart of it.
Heart of the Coral Sea.
Have a heart kind of pop in and then maybe fade off screen, and then when
lies
you
the
say
Great Barrier
lies the Great Barrier Reef, that's when you can fade this outline in, right? And continue with the zoom. I think the zooming,
a wonderland of vibrant
like the punching in on the scene, that's a good idea.
Vibrant colors and diverse marine life stretching 1429 miles along.
And you don't want to say 1429 miles, say 1429 miles. I know it's more of a mouthful to say, but that's how we would say it. Or if you're going to say it in kilometers, you could say it in kilometers as well.
1429 miles along the Australian coast, this reef sustains an impressive amount of life, including over 1,500 species of fish, like these white-tailed bacillus.
That's cool. I would even add more of them. Maybe some other, another type of fish in the background or something. Maybe, and then the other thing I might do is just change because these colors match closely. So I would maybe change a little bit of the palette that's happening in here. I mean, obviously you have the drop shadow behind it, which lends itself to separating the objects.
Over 1,500 species of fish, like these white-tailed bacillus.
But yeah, you're talking about all these species of fish, and specifically pointing out the white-tailed bacillus. So maybe just put like another couple fish in the background, and they don't have to be as intricate of drawings, and they don't have to be as detailed of animations, right? Those ones can just kind of be moving along in a path or in a school of fish, like grouped in like a different like a section like over here, maybe just in the background, so that they're not really distracting from all these other cool fish that are in here. And then maybe add a couple more right in this area, so that when this bag comes through as the transition, you can there's still, it's going to cover up all the fish. There's still something happening here, right? Now this transition, great for start at it, especially trying something. I know what you were wanting to do is you wanting to have the bag essentially wipe over and reveal the next scene. And so what you can do here, let me drag this into my test composition and bring this over. Okay, so we want this bag to essentially reveal this scene. So let's cut this right here. Shift Control D, and then I'm actually going to take this one and move it over, and this one and move it over here. And so instead of the fading, right, let's say this is my other layer that I wanted to reveal. You would do this. So on this scene where the bag's coming through, you will take your pen tool and let's kind of let's work backwards from here, right? And so we're going to be doing essentially right about here is good. And maybe what you could do is draw, let me zoom out a little bit here. Working further away from your scene will lend itself in this situation. And you can kind of just go like this. The less points, especially during something like this, the better, right? And then we want to close it up to be essentially close to like the outline of the bag. And remembering that like you might have to trace the outline of the bag a little bit more, so you might have more points there. So instead of this one, I'd move this here and just kind of go plop, 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 like this, drop one there, and then kind of do that. And the bag disappears, right? Because we need to invert that mask. And so I will, if you just hit M on your layer, the mask will be revealed. You can either go into here and go to subtract, or you can easily just click invert and it will invert that as well. I did not want to hide that. Let me do this because it was at add, right? This is how it defaults. And if you just click on invert, it will bring this up. Now, what you then do is I would keyframe the mask path right there. And then work my way backwards doing, so this would have to be forward quite a bit, right? Probably starting right about here. That would come into the scene. Okay, so like right there, I'm going to select this mask path so I can see it. And I'm going to hit V and I'm just going to select all of these ones in the front that are connected to the path here. And then I'm just going to use my arrow key to kind of push them back until it lines up with the bag. And this is kind of tedious work, but it looks really cool when you do one of these transitions to reveal. I'm going to hold down shift here. I'm sorry about that, you guys. Quiet that. And then control, and I'll push back again I'll push my back arrow on the keyboard. When you do that, when holding control, it moves one keyframe at a time on your timeline, right? And so then I'm gonna arrow this back again. You can hold it down. Oh, there we go, right there. And then control back arrow to go back one frame, then just moving these with the arrow. That's all I'm doing, right? If you want to move it with your mouse key, I'll hit control back to move another keyframe. And then you just click this and hold down shift, right? And then move this here. Let's say it's going to reveal, like, we'll just put a different colored layer underneath so that you can understand a little bit differently how it will look in the end result, right? And then, so move back, select these ones again. If you click off, you have to select them. Don't select these ones. These ones are your anchors to the mask. So it doesn't really change. Back. Holding down shift. Back. And then that way you don't really have to change the opacity. This can kind of just float onto the screen and it reveals the next image or scene, right? And then you're going to go back, holding down shift. We're getting towards the end here. Shift one more, and then we can just move this fully. These ones right here, fully off screen. Because if it overlaps, if the mask is overlapping off screen, it's not that big of a deal, right? And then and then as that bag moves over, it's gonna reveal, and you would obviously move forward here, right? And then you would move these all forward again, holding down shift. You could even leave these behind a little bit more to kind of make a more dramatic looking angle. I'm not going to do that right now, but just select all of these and then go to the next one, move them over, and you can see what I mean by tedious processes, right? And then you would continue that, and then eventually it would just wipe off and then show that. And I would feather it slightly, so you can just scroll down there and maybe just 10, 15. I don't know. You might want to feather it first before you, let's do 25 right there. Feather it first so that it's within the bag. Like you can change it where it is with the bag, but or like you might have to move this up a little bit more so it matches where the bag is a little bit more, but yeah, a really cool way to use a transition. Use other objects to make a transition into your next scene. Let's see here.
A large part of the ecosystem is protected. Pollution, climate change, and other factors endanger the reef's coral and biodiversity.
Cool. Maybe having, yeah, that was cool. Audio levels sound appropriate. Again, you can remove this and then having these all aligned on the same area, right? So I would take these, I would take this one and move it over this way. So it's just touching the bottom of the A is just touching right there. And then move this one. Whoa, that's awfully big. Come on here. Move this, your name down to here underneath this, right? And then making sure the spacing is appropriate, and then move it to a different corner of the composition instead of centered. And then you can just get rid of this. You can get rid of the music. I'm not going to count you guys. I'm not going to like dock you, obviously, if you have the music credits in there, because we talked about it last time. So but if you want to remove that, you can, and just make sure you're putting the credits in the description.
Bats are one of the few mammals that are capable of flying.
Oh, let me do this first. And this is Lee's. Let me mute my thing.
Bats are one of the few mammals that are capable of flying. While they can be found in a few places around the world, almost a third of their species is located in Central and South America. Many assume these animals are blind, but their eyes are actually very loaded with photoreceptor cells, and this gives them the ability to see in the dark. Bats are one of the
Really
few
cool,
mammals
Lee.
that are capable.
I'm into that. That looked really cool. I know the audio levels turned down a little bit. I hope you guys heard that. But Lee's was really, that was awesome, Lee. Cool on the hovering of the bat looks cool here. I would just add an eye blink into this and maybe animate the ears, right? So if we're animating the ears and we have, that's what I didn't do earlier is oh man, my playhead wasn't on the timeline and that's why my image wasn't showing up. I figured it out. And that's why I had to create a new comp. Dorky. Anyways, so you have your ear. Let's draw one real quick. And making sure you want to kind of, let's draw a bat head separately. All right, we have the head here. kind of lining up with the ear. And you want to make sure that you give a little bit of this like space down below whatever object. Like here's let me rename this real quick, head. And this is good for all of you guys to take this information, because I see this a lot in student designs, is not leaving like some overlapping areas of where the joints are, where the objects are connecting, so that when you start to animate it, it doesn't show a hard edge of that object. So let me rename this one ear, and ear. Let's change the color of this a little bit darker so we can see the difference. Okay. And I would parent this to the head using the pick whip tool. And then let's grab the head and kind of just bring it to the center more. And so you'll take the ear and let's move this anchor point down, right? And this is the problem that you generally see. As soon as I start to rotate this, notice how you can see the edge right here, and we don't want to see that. And so what I would do inside of your illustrations, I would take this object and let me type in here path while on that layer so I can select the path. And this one in particular, I would round off using the convert vertex tool, holding down shift and clicking there. And then I would actually probably round these off as well. Right? You have an ear. And just giving it this rounded look, as soon as I start to rotate this a little bit, it's not such a jarring separation there. You get like this smooth transition happening. I would probably even just move this down more and then rotate it from there. And then you can just add the rotation. You just keyframe the rotation. Now remember, when animals move their ears, right, it's not consistently the same motion. It's not like a looping motion. When you see animals move their ears, they move them like this, and they hear something else, and then they move to that area, right? They move kind of in less, they're like, it's not so symmetrical, right? It's like, think of like seeing like a cat's ears move, and they kind of, one will move at one time and the other will kind of move. Not saying that you have to do that here, but just very quick kind of motions. So I would start here, zoom in on the timeline, move a couple frames ahead and change it to this and leave it like that. Like, whoop, it kind of moves up. Maybe even 4 frames would be okay. Moves up. It's like that for a little while. Then you're gonna keyframe this position. Oop. Copy paste, and then it's going to use another few frames and then move down, right? So you've got this kind of jerking, quick motion happening to the ears. And then you can always adjust these with the way the motion looks, adjusting them using easing. But, you know, you have to keep in mind what you're seeing when you look at that animal moving. The eye blinks, like I said, would lend themselves here to this as well. You could do it using the path animation that we spoke about in the one class, or the scaling of the eyes, where you unlock one. But the problem with this is because of the way the eyes are shaped. So I think that the path animation is what's going to work for you here, Lee. But really cool on this. I like it. Let's continue moving forward. This is great scene. Love seeing their little wings go off. There's a little bit of a, I think it's maybe my computer, because there's almost like a black screen glitch and I don't see it. Oh, there it was. Make sure that's not actually, make sure this is not in your video, Lee. And so it might just be where your compositions aren't lining up perfectly, and there's like one dropped frame in there. So I would check that. This is cool. I like how you obviously have the foreground and background separated here. You've got different layers happening. This was very clever.
Very loaded with photos.
I would maybe rock him back and forth a little bit, like he's swaying, right? Bring your anchor point up to the top here and do a little bit of a rotation. You can do ear motion here as well. A good opportunity to do that.
Photoreceptor cells, and this gives them the ability to see in the dark.
Here is cool. I would maybe just take this fading part here where the eyes and speed that up a little bit so that it happens quicker. And so that when you say,
this gives them the ability to see in the dark.
Like maybe right here is where you'd want this to like only
The ability to see in the dark.
maybe like 1 second after you say see in the dark, you want to have those eyes like fully on screen, right? So you need to shorten that section up a little bit. But that's really cool here to give that sense of that. Remember alignment on here, right? And then think about the hierarchy on here as well. I see you have this, yeah, just really the alignment, and then you can remove the music searching for, but really good job. Good job on this, Lee. Impressed with your guys' work so far, you guys. All right, Kaylee's.
Red Fox.
Let me mute my mic.
Red foxes are found all across the northern hemisphere. They inhabit dens located on the edge of forests near fields perfect for hunting. Red foxes have excellent hearing and can easily hear a mouse running in the fields more than 100 feet away. Foxes prefer to hunt alone, but if they have pups, they will take turns bringing them food. Red foxes are found all across the northern hemisphere. They inhabit dens located on the edge of forests near fields perfect for hunting. Red foxes have excellent hearing and can easily hear a mouse running in the fields more than 100 feet away. Foxes prefer to hunt alone, but if they have pups, they will take turns bringing.
Cool. I really think this is a cute scene. Here where she obviously brings the mouse to the pup. Funny thing you could do is you could switch the eyes to X's if the mouse is dead. I don't know why I thought of that. I just thought it would be funny. You don't have to do that, obviously, but good start here, Kaylee, on this, and it's really cute. The one thing I did notice right away, right, is your audio levels are really low. And so we want to adjust those audio levels. Like I said, the best thing to do is work with your headphones on, listen to the audio levels. If you need to shut the visuals off, like just turning the layers off here, so you're just listening to the music so you can get that music dialed in, I would do that. And then making sure that your computer is at like 50% volume, right? Because that's where about most people listen to their computer. Like their computer volume is set at. And that way you're going to be like, oh gosh, if it's at 50% volume and this is blowing my eardrums out, then it's obviously way too loud, because if someone has their computer set higher than 50% volume, then it's going to just like explode their whole home. And we don't want to be responsible for that. So work on the audio levels. And then what you should do is when you're done and you've rendered the video out is to play it back on regular speakers. Like if you have computer speakers, then play it back that way. And that way you can hear how it sounds like on a regular set of speakers as well. Usually listening to your audio and off of two different devices is a great idea and a great way to test like whether you're getting it right or not, or you're like within the range you need to be. There's a couple things that I would do here. Obviously, you need to scale this down so it's not on screen before the video starts. We need to start with like nothing on the screen, right? And then this is cute. It would
Foxes are
benefit.
found all across the northern hemisphere.
That would benefit from an eye blink here and some ear wiggling, like I was showing before. So I would add those into here. I
Found
like
all
how the
across
little
the northern
nose
hemisphere.
is like smelling. Not sure why my computer did that, but
Red foxes are found all across the northern hemisphere. They inhabit dens.
something's happening here. You need the opacity to start. Once this starts scaling up, you need to add the opacities, animate the opacity as well, so that it changes at the same time. Because right now, the opacity starts like right here, like the change happens right here, and it's way too fast, especially because we have this coming at the screen. Usually, if you're going to do a scale and opacity change to reveal another one, I would do it simultaneously, so that it happens all at the same time, and you're not running into this issue.
Dens located on the edge of forests.
This is cute. I think you should, what you should do is center this into the composition at first. Maybe the objects go off of the screen, right? And I would add more foliage in here to make it look like the edge of the forest. Like you look at an edge of a forest and it's usually robust with a lot of different plants and trees and stuff like that. So I would add definitely a lot more here so we can tell that it's off to the side. And then the den in there, then you can put the den in there and it'll look a little bit more like a den, because right now it just kind of looks like this, like almost like a tree trunk or something happening. And so having a wider shot here, or having what do I want to say? Like your scene's expanding obviously beyond the shot. And what I would do is stay punched into this level here and center the fox, and you could then pull out on the scene and move that, animate the position change as well. And that will give you kind of where he's sliding off to the side and the screen's pulling out to reveal this part right there, kind of like you did that, because it goes off to the side here. I would, add some more foliage onto here, right? Because now I see what the whole entire scene looks like. I would add some more stuff close, like off here, kind of like it goes this way. And let me draw what I'm talking about, like adding more of the green so it kind of meets like this, right? And goes off. Right now it's like a cute little hobbit hole, but let's like add some more interesting looking plants and stuff to the hobbit hole. And then you could always, like, those branches could be animated, right? Like if you had like a fern and it's got all of the little leaves like this, obviously this is rough, but you could create this, duplicate it a bunch of times, and then you'd have a bunch of little ferns here, which you could animate the swaying of it or the rotation of it very slightly, and you would have a little bit there. Now the thing, here's something cool, right? The ear sounds.
Red foxes have excellent hearing and can easily hear a mouse running in the fields more.
I think that's a great time to have, in fact, I would have this scene. Let me see.
The northern hemisphere. They inhabit dens located on the edge of forests near fields perfect for hunting. Red foxes.
Right here, maybe you could have a cut where it punches in so you can see the red fox's face, like a little bit of a tighter shot on his face, and then more centered into the composition. And then you could pull back to reveal the rest of this, right, where the mouse is. And that way when you're saying
for hunting. Red on the edge of forests near fields perfect for hunting. Red foxes have excellent hearing.
They have excellent hearing is when you could start that animation of the ears, like I can, just a little bit, and then it can hear in the direction of where the mouse is. This looks a little bit more like wind to me. What I would do instead is a little technique using a repeater, right? Like, so let's say your creature, I'm just going to draw a blob to represent your creature, right? Like, let's see, here is your fox. It's got his tail. Okay, you have your fox here, right? The most beautiful fox you have ever seen. And let's do the hearing thing, right? So if you're punched in, what do I mean by that? So I would, first of all, move this to the center and scale it up. Remember, I mentioned that in the beginning here. And then you have like his ear motions happening, maybe not that high, right? It could be just like this. You know, so you can just see a majority of him, and you can really see that ear animation. Add those blinks into there as well. And then here we could do, when you're hearing, they have excellent hearing, right? We could draw essentially like like a crescent shape. So I would go up like this, holding down shift, and then move that there, holding shift, and kind of get like this similar shape there. Move that there. And then I would just want to do a stroke and not a fill. So let's, ooh, and it's already rounded. We'll just do like a white, right? Here, it is not rounded. It must have like a join thing happening. I'm going to change the size. Obviously, I want it much smaller than that. So I'll put 10 in here. And let's just drop down to the stroke and make it a round cap. Let me click off so I can see it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that works. And then I would probably leave it. You could leave that anchor point right there in the center of this. And then what you want to do is down here where it says add, right? You're going to click on that and you're going to add a repeater. You're going to add this right here. And then what it does is it repeats the shape, right? It makes copies of whatever you've put it on whatever layer. This works with any kind of shape layer. So if I wanted to do it to my fox right now, I could repeat the shape of my fox. But I don't want to do that. This transform repeater, right? This transforms all of the properties of that repeater. So if I change the position, it's going to change where these are in relatively to where the main one is, right? The main copy. You can increase the number of copies here if you want to, like if I wanted a ton of them, right? We'll just put in 3 for now. 3 or 4 usually is good for this. And we don't need the position change. We're going to zero that out. What we need to change is the scale here. So if you notice, the scale is going to increase the distance between each of the iterations of this. And then we want it to be kind of centered to that. So what I would do is I would adjust the anchor point here and then increase the scale a little bit more right there. But adjusting that anchor point will allow you to kind of just offset where the center is happening. And then you can animate that scale, right? Like if you wanted to do, you could start at 100 here, and what we'll do first is we will animate the opacity of the entire layer. So moving backwards, and then we'll go to 0. So from 0 to 100, it animates on. Bring that over a little bit so it's not just one frame. Animates on, and then we can offset that, go into your contents, to your repeater, to your transform repeater, and then animate that scale, right? From 100 to like whatever it was, like 115. There's good. 120. Now, you could also just do the start and end opacity instead. So let's try that. Right? You could start it at 0. Right? Can you do that? Okay, this is kind of like the trim paths, right? Like animating the trim paths differently. Let me keyframe the end opacity as well, because that's going to have to be keyframed. And then I want to shut off this opacity of the main layer. Turn this all the way up to 100. You're not seeing it, right? Because I changed the opacity here. And we want it to, in order for it to be fully transparent, the end opacity has to be at 0, and so does the start opacity, right? And then we're going to hit U on the keyboard, and then I don't think I have to actually animate the end opacity. I think I can just do this and then animate that fully up there. So, whoop, wrong. This one? Yeah, the start there. So it's going to go whoop, and then it here is, you do have to animate the end opacity. So start that at 0 and make sure that maybe right here it's at 100. And then you can always animate it opposite, or you can take these, copy, paste them, right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse these, and then you have it kind of fading out like so, this, right? And then you could repeat this animation. You can always just cut the layer right here, holding Alt and the square bracket, and duplicate this a couple times, and then move them further along, further away from the face, and maybe while it's pulling out of the scene. But this is a good way to show, like, this is a great way to visualize echolocation. It's a great way to visualize audio cues that something's hearing something in a certain in the distance. The wave thing, I appreciate that, using it that way. This way might just be a little bit more effective for what you're doing. And then let's see here, pulling out, this is cute. Maybe I see your little nose, the little nose animations on the mouse, grabbing it here, picks him up, drops him to the, there we go, cute, neat. Yeah, let's alignment right here, so make sure everything's aligned, and then you can remove that. Really good job overall on here, Kaylee. This is really cute too. I enjoyed it. All right, now we have I think this is Nolan's. All right, let's play here. I'm going to mute my thing.
African savanna elephant is the world's largest land animal. They are located all throughout Africa and tend to eat bark, fruits, leaves, and grasses. African savanna elephant is the world's largest land animal. They are located all throughout Africa and tend to eat bark, fruits, leaves, and grasses.
I really enjoy the music, like the background, just that jazzy vibe that you have going on. I'm into it. It reminds me of, like, for some reason, it reminds me of Charlie Brown. Uh, but I like it. Overall, pretty good. There's some things I would change here. The first thing I think is, like, this is something obviously is going on with the type here. So making sure that you guys are all using the approved fonts that you were given in the beginning of the semester, and making sure that this is obviously aligned, right, and not centered. And then maybe changing this scale slightly of this. Let's go to the beginning. Right here, this kind of is, obviously you can see the edge here, and there is a black bar happening. So let me see where let's check you guys on the size of your stuff. Frame rate type. Where is it? Where do I know the flow chart? Where's the option that I can turn on to see columns? Video info. Okay. This has happened before in classes, Nolan. So your video is obviously everyone's doing pretty good. Angelina right here, 60 frames a second. Let's change that to 24 frames a second. Just because I'm looking at it right now. And then everyone's at 1920 by 1080 as far as like their aspect ratio goes, which is great. But this just means, because you have these black bars happening at the top and bottom here, Nolan, is the composition size is incorrect. So you want to make sure you go in there and check the size of your comp and make sure that your comp is actually 1920 by 1080. Now, the other thing is that you need to scale this up higher so that we don't see this edge of the outline of the elephant. And that kind of brings me to another thing here. I would not have an outline on, as far as design goes. The elephant looks really cool, but I would not have really an outline around all of this, right? I would possibly, what you could do is add highlights to this a little bit differently and maybe some shadows in it. I think that Kaylee did something similar. Like Kaylee's here has the outline, right? But it doesn't show, like the outline's not happening here where the ears are at. And you can do this inside of Illustrator, or you can mask things out using After Effects if you need to, but then just making sure that they overlap. You give a little bit of that overlap, because this is what I was talking about earlier, like specifically when the trunks of the elephants are animating, you can see the edges here. And so you don't want the stroke really there defining that. You can change the colors like this. Doing that will help define body parts as well. So if you wanted to do the ear up here, I would maybe make the outer rim of the ear a little bit darker. Maybe the ear could be the only thing with the stroke on it, and the tail. And the rest of this just not really having a stroke. Now, if I get back to this scene here, so you want to increase the scale so that I don't see this area right there. You're going to need to remove that part anyways. This is really a good chance to add some animation here, which we don't have. Elephants, like, obviously they're whipping their tails all the time, which are swatting away flies, right? They're also, their ears, they communicate with their ears. And so it's really important to have their ears flapping back and forth, like the wing flaps, right? Making this head kind of move up and the trunk move. Like, there's so many opportunities here for the motion, which I see it's been rigged that way, right? And so let's add that motion into here and some blinking happening. Because I think that's a missed opportunity in this spot. This part right here, cool. I think that
Elephant is the world's largest land animal.
it should hit for just a second and then open back up. So it should close, open. So you need to speed this up a little bit here, and then make sure that they're meeting up, maybe overlapping slightly, because I can see just a very thin, if I shut off my title action save, I can still see like a very thin line happening here where they're not fully joining together. And so just making sure that that joins together. This would be a really cool opportunity to add some kind of texture to this, right? Like you could add like a zigzagging pattern to this, or like a woven looking pattern to it. Kind of like how Eric did his, where he's got a lot of patterns on his different layers, right? You could do that as well. You can always bring in an image of like some rattan or like bamboo. Let me see here. rattan, rattan, right? This would be kind of neat, like this woven texture. You can find a high quality free image of this, and then overlay it onto the yellow section, and maybe blend it a little bit using your blend modes and your opacity to make it fit in with there, or you can draw it on there. Drawing it would be cool. You can always create seamless patterns inside of Illustrator, which help. And then it would kind of look like those, like a very jungly type of door closing, which would give it a little bit more of a visual interest here. I think that that would be a cool opportunity to use there. And then just making sure the close kind of happens. It's not settled for too long and then opens. This is cool. I would maybe put some blue behind Africa so that you can see just the separation of the country and the background.
And tend to eat.
And then
Located
you'll
all
have
throughout
the animation happening of the elephants inside of these
throughout
icons.
Africa, and tend to eat bark, fruits, leaves, and grasses.
Maybe some, let's add some interest to the back of this. Let me see here. Let's maybe, so I like that this is actually smaller. It gives a sense of being further back, right? I would maybe add a little bit more here. And a quick way that you can actually do that is by, if you take a solid, right? We'll create a new solid, and we'll make this one green. Okay. And to give it that random, we'll take this and we'll move the position of it. We'll drop it down. And you can add let's add like we want to distort the image, right? So let's go to distort. And let's add to this one. We could do warp. Reshape. Let's do the warp. Yeah. Let's try warping it. Dropping that onto our layer. No, the warp doesn't work. You can do it. No, I don't know why I did that. So we would have to wave warp. We might be able to do it with this one. Ooh, a cool way to create grass. Right, kind of. The problem with this is it obviously gets cut off right here. So if you did this, right, if you wanted to create obviously an even level of grass, but grass is never like that. So I would just at that point draw a shape that has a fill. that is, this is a good way to, let me see here. Right, you could do, right, we're just creating a random shape, weird kind of landscape. And you could add that, we've worked it this way, and then you just have to extend the shape down at the base. There's another way you can do it. I might just do it the other way, because this obviously, the problem here is that it's showing right here, and unless you're covering it up with another layer, you don't want that. And I would change the sign to this. Let me see. And you can create kind of like a jaggedy one. Now there's a different way. Let's do this. Delete this. We'll create the new solid again. Drop down in position. And actually you can't do it with a solid. You have to have a shape layer. So I would grab a rectangle and I would make it like this. And then change that to green. Or don't. Okay. We have 40 minutes left. I'm going to try and get through the rest of your guys's, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to get through. So I might have to touch on your guys, some of the other ones, next class. And then I'll give you guys feedback on other stuff as we go along, right? Because I want to get you guys feedback on your logos as well. So, you can go into add down here and add wiggle paths. And what that does is you can see it's slightly uneven here at the top, right? So we'll go into this wiggle path and we're going to increase the size of this. And maybe smooth out the corners, and then you can change the detail here, right? And you can drop the size down. Changing the detail. Drop the wiggles per second down to 0 because you don't want it to move, right? Because it automatically moves if so. You can change the spatial phase, which will change like the distance, obviously, that each kind of dip in, like the recesses are happening within the object. This is really cool to create like a weird slime look too, honestly. And you can just come in here and mess around with this to give like an uneven kind of background, or you can just draw it. This is also good for water, right? So if I left that wiggles per second to 2, and then I just change this back to 50, let's put this back down to 0. Let's decrease the detail down to 10, maybe 20, right? And then if I play this, it's a little too fast. I would put 1 wiggle a second for water, and then you could put something behind it, right? Like, I don't know, a different object that's a different color, and drop it behind here. And then this could animate in position, right? The position of this object could change while the waves are kind of happening, right? And so obviously your water would be blue, but that's just maybe an idea. Like adding, you could do that to the water here to kind of give it an idea of like a little shore. But you're talking about grass,
leaves, and grasses.
Leaves and grasses and stuff, and them eating some other stuff. So I would maybe, and you need to utilize the puppet pin tool with these like trunks and stuff, so that maybe you can have it bend up closer into their mouth, because it doesn't just rotate into their mouth, right? Like their trunk obviously rotates, but like it curls up into their actual mouth. So I would, like right here, open the mouth. Like obviously you don't see them really eating much here, or maybe their head is up and they're pulling something off a tree. Having these clouds animate slowly, either this way or this way, adding more of them into the scene and changing the transparency. So good start on this, but some work, just some work here to do to make this a little bit more, to just heighten this video a little bit more. But good job. All right, we have Janelle's. So let's zoom in on this, fit this to here, and then I'm going to mute my mic and we're going to play. Oh, also I wanted to mention that the audio, Nolan, maybe let's get a cleaner take of the audio. Let me listen.
African savanna elephant.
So you need to work on the audio a little bit, and the it sounds like, I don't know if it's the mic that you're using or something, but maybe we utilize either getting a little bit closer to the mic, right? Or having either me or Belle can record it for you if that helps. But work on the levels of your audio, because right now your voiceover
Elephant is the world's largest land animal.
and your music are competing, and you don't want that. I would increase your voiceover. Or just record it, re-record it, and make sure it's loud enough, right? All right, to Janelle's, and I'm going to mute my mic.
There is estimated to be over 130 million books published worldwide. Some of the most popular genres include nonfiction, fantasy, romance, poetry, science fiction, historical fiction, and mystery. The world's largest library, the Library of Congress, is located in Washington, D.C., and is home to over 55 million books. There is estimated.
Very impressive, Janelle. Like, a lot of work. You put a lot of work into this, and I can obviously see it. I think that you're, I mean, the whole video is very cohesive. Great job on this. First of all, this open book, great. Killed it on that. That is really cool.
Is estimated to be over
with the position change, it's very centered. If I turn back on my title action save, oh, I don't want to go back here.
130 million books published worldwide.
The zooming into that was good, nice and smooth there.
Some of the most popular genres include nonfiction, fantasy.
Love this. So something that you guys will notice here what Janelle did, and this is really good to take note of and keep in mind, like when creating your own. If you have little call outs like this, right? The little icons that are popping up, having animations inside of those creates so much more interest into it. And it makes it look really cool, and you just kind of want
romance, poetry, science fiction, historical fiction, and mystery.
In fact, here, like, I want to see these a little bit more, Janelle, so maybe just adding a slight pause in between each one of these categories and lengthen that out a little bit more would lend it to having
the world's largest library.
Would be really cool. I do think that the world doesn't have to spin so quickly. You can slow down the rotation of the world here.
Romance, poetry,
like the little hearts,
science fiction, historical.
This one's really cool. The poetry, like, great use of animating the, like, it's like a write on text. It's like you're writing it on. And that's, you know, your use of the tracing the path with
poetry, science fiction, historical fiction, and mystery.
Yeah, so my timing that I would do like this is romance, pause. So you do, what did you say? Romance, pause, poetry, pause, science fiction, pause, and just giving a little bit of that breathing room here, because you've done so much work into this and you don't want this to go unnoticed. Now, The one thing I do see here, if I'm nitpicking this right, is you want these hearts to continue and not just stop there. So maybe increasing the amount of hearts here. And we could do that. Actually, just increase maybe double the comp and stick it in there. For right now, I think that would be better on your system than trying to use something else. And overall, really good job. The ship here is moving backwards. And so maybe changing the direction of the ship so it's moving forward, right? And then you would want to change the direction of the flags. But that's nitpicking the design, right? But these are all things that would improve it a little bit more.
The world's largest library, the Library of Congress,
Great little call out there.
is located in Washington, D.C. and is
Awesome.
home to over 55 million books.
Love it. Very, very cute. Good job with your hierarchy on the text. You can remove the music on there. The music
There is estimated
is quintessential of what you would see in an infographic, right? It fits your topic really well.
to be over 100
I would maybe drop the audio level down slightly of the music, just maybe one notch, maybe two. Gosh, Janelle, a lot of hard work put into this. Good job. This one,
the world's largest library,
maybe slow down the rotation of the earth again. Like we had
the
done,
world's largest library,
like just work on the easing of that one.
the Library of Congress,
But this is great.
is located in Washington, D.C.
And you probably don't even have to have this. You can. I think that's really cool. You can still have this called out right there. I would maybe make sure that this points more to like the Washington D.C. area, right? Like, so I would change where this is, unless it's really just like pulling out the United States. You could also zoom into this shot, like center the, you could keep the comp centered here and it would slowly settle, like move this rotation over slightly. Oh, no, this way, right? Like continue to rotate it a little bit further so this is more centered, and then zoom in on your world, like punch in on the shot a little bit, and then have this happen there, because this kind of the like layout of this composition is just slightly funny. It's just slightly off a little bit. That's what I meant by funny. It's just slightly off a little bit. And so I would like to see this kind of happening more central to the composition. And I think that by keeping the world centered and punching in on the shot and then having that pop up would be cool as well, right? Or you could continue to you can keep this happening, but maybe just take this section, right? The come on now. My fingers are getting crazy. Okay. Take this section, wrong. Right here. Move it over a little bit this way, right? And you can change the color of the green so that it kind of pops out a little bit more from this. And that way this is more centered into the composition, moved over. It overlaps with the world, right? And if you need to add a little drop shadow on that, you can do that as well. Just very, very subtle. Drop shadows should be subtle, right? Great job overall, though. Awesome work. Really cool. All right, here we have Yvette. Let me mute my mic. Just a news flash for you guys. I see little feet under the door, little cat feet under my door right now. Very entertaining is like a side snippet when I looked over there. I think paws under the door are like the cutest thing ever. They're just so funny. All right, muting my mic, going back, move on. All right, Yvette. Okay, so apparently my audio was on anyways. Sorry about that, you guys. So obviously we need a voice over here with some kind of text happening, right? Or some kind of script. The design is really cool. I like it. This is a great example of how to add a stroke if you guys do want to add a stroke. Having a black stroke is very um it's kind of harsh, right? And it stands out a lot, and that's not necessarily what's kind of in trend right now, right? um but what Yvette did here is she added a stroke on, but it is a similar color to her actual shark. And so this adds just like a subtle detail around the shark to add that separation, but it's not so jarring that that's like the first thing you start to pay attention to. It's just like something that your eye naturally leans into when looking at a design. And so really making the outline, if you want to have that on there, you can have the stroke, and but just making it like a different color, like a color similar to what your main object is. A cool little trick there. Really neat on that. The bubbles here, I think there's a missed opportunity to animate the bubbles a little bit here. How can we do that? Let's try using um let's try using particle effect. So let's create a new solid. It'll be blue to represent the water. Drop it down here a little bit more like this. Okay. Here is the ocean. Let's add a new adjustment layer here. And we are going to label this bubble effect. And Janelle, this is kind of what I was saying about the heart, right? Let's look in here. And let's add a particle. So we're going to go into our effects panel. We're going to type in particle, and we're going to add CC particle world to this adjustment layer that we added in here. Or not that one. Is it that one? Maybe the particle systems. Yes. So particle systems 2, not the world, but the particle systems 2 and not particular. Now, notice something to notice here. Okay, you guys, there are numbers next to your effects, and these are the bits that your project is in, right? 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit. These have to match up with your project in order to work smoothly and for like the effects to run well with your project in particular. And so if you need to update that, right, it will change your file size. But inside of your project down here, and sometimes it will, sometimes it won't give you that warning, but here's where you would change that. So I would just click here, and this changes like the amount, this changes like your color of your, like how the color is essentially like rendered out and looked at inside of After Effects and when you render it. And so you can change to these. Keep it at 8 bits for right now. It seems like the particle one will work, but sometimes you will get a warning about that. Okay. And so if you ever get that warning, there will be like a little yellow triangle or something by it in the effects control. Right here, you'll see like a little yellow triangle, and that's what that little yellow triangle is usually indicating, that it doesn't match up, right? So some effects, like adding them into certain projects, will give you that issue. It did not do that for this, so no problem there. Okay, so let me kind of open these up. Cool. Now we have, it doesn't look like anything's on here, but it is. So if I start to play this, you'll see that obviously there's particles happening from the center of the composition, and they look like little kind of sparks off of like a sparkler, right? And so we're going to adjust this so it looks more like bubbles floating up. And so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create my bubble. I am going to take the ellipse tool, I'm going to draw a circle, and I'm going to fill that with like a different colored blue, like a lighter blue, right? Like that to be in there. You could even add like another little circle on the inside of that to create. In fact, let's do this. Let's change the fill of that little circle, the second one. Cancel here. Select that second little circle and go to the fill. Let's delete the fill on that one. Add a stroke to it and just the like maybe a white, like a really light blue. Let's see what that looks like. Hard to register there. Whatever. Let me change it to darker so that you can just see it on here. Right. Okay, we have a bubble. And so we still have this producing in the background. Let's take, we want it to look essentially at this bubble and be like, this is what I want to use to be my particle, right? It's this, the particles are being produced out of the center of the composition right now. And so we're going to change all of that here. And it's going to be a very quick kind of tutorial on this, how to do this. Now, the particle type, we do not want it to be a line. Oh, they have a bubble one. Neat. You could just select the bubbles there. What you can also do is there's an option usually to use an icon or your image. Random seed. No. There used to be one here that could do that. Maybe that's why you have to use the particle world one. So let me just delete this. You don't have to create the bubble. It's already got the bubbles here for you. And I want to obviously change the color of these. So let's go from like a dark blue like that. And then a light, we'll just kind of grab that color. And then we'll do this a lighter blue like that. Even lighter. And it's changing the kind of gradient of it, right? It's not changing each and every one. It's like the birth color is going to start at darker and the death color is going to be lighter. Now, what does birth and death mean? The birth is like where that particle generates from, and the death is where it fades out to, right? So right now, if I play this, there would die off screen, right? The particle would disappear and die off screen. But it's starting here and it's generating. It's being birthed from the center of wherever that the particle emitter is, right? It's emitting these particles. And so let's just pause this here, bring this back. And we want to, we'll kind of move a little bit forward in time so we can see where this is. Obviously, we don't need this many, so we're going to drop down the birth rate, right? Quite a bit lower, probably to point, let's just change the birth rate to 0.1. Let's do 2.2 so that we have a few on screen. Now, okay, cool, but it's obviously not going in the right direction and the position is wrong, right? We kind of want this to start off screen. So we'll do the off screen thing here in a second, but we want to change the direction that these particles are going. So I think that what you want to do is you want to change the gravity here into the negative so that it floats. So then it's not being pulled down, but it's instead going up, right? So I would probably do negative, let's try -1. And let's drop the velocity down so it's not moving so quickly. So let's do 0.3 here. Actually, the velocity is changing like how quickly it is coming out of that emitter. So let's increase it a little bit more so they're further spread apart. So let's just do a full 1 right there. And then the resistance is going to add resistance on that. I think that particle coming out of the emitter is what it seems like. Let's just change that back down, and we'll mess around with that in a second here. But we want to kind of expand this out. Right now it's being emitted from a single point, and we kind of want to expand it out so it's being emitted over the entire thing. The longevity is how long these are on screen, right? So if we drop this down, they won't be on screen for very long. Like, they'll die a lot quicker. So if I, all right, let's bring this up a little bit more. Like, all of a sudden, look, they're fading out a lot quicker here. They're dying a lot quicker. So I'd probably leave this at 2. The radius here is where how like big that emitter is, right? If you could see the emitter, if it were like a circle or a box, right? And we want to change the size of that emitter so it's emitting them from like a wider area. And so I'm going to change that X radius so that it reaches all the way across my area. And then I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to bring the center and the position of the emitter down to the bottom. Now it's still really going all over the place. We don't want it to be an explosive animation. Let's change it to direction, right? So that way it's going up all in one direction up here. The explosive, right, means that it's exploding outside of that emitter. The direction means that it's going in one direction from the emitter. So the direction one is what we would want specifically if you're doing the bubbles here. Let's see, this is the this is the position of the emitter when you look there, so you can drag that down, or you can change the position up here under the producer, and that way it will be emitted here. It's still really, like, the birth rate is good, but the speed is really fast. The velocity, if you drop the velocity down, it's going to look a lot more like the bubbles are kind of being pulled up. I would even drop the birth rate down a little bit more, so it's 0.1. So you only get a few coming up here every once in a while. We want it to be slow. Let's put this to 0 here. Actually, negative. Let's try opposite, 0.5. Yeah, that'll do the speed for you. Dropping down the gravity a little bit more. So negative. So instead of going further into the negatives, you want to kind of go more towards that 0 space. So negative 0.03. That's too slow. Negative 0.3. That's not bad right there. And then obviously let's have the death rate. Let's have them on screen a little bit longer. So let's increase that. 2.5. Maybe even drop this down to negative 0.2. Increase how long they are on there. You can have them, you can change the size of them, right? So like I want them larger at the birth and then smaller when they die, or like vice versa, right? Like I want them really small when they start out, like 0.10, and then larger and expand when they're technically dying. You can do that. You can increase the variation of the size a little bit more. And you can change the opacity, right? Like if you want them fully opaque the entire time, you change the max opacity to 100. And the color map is how it's looking at the color, right? So like origin to death, origin constant, right, would be a constant color palette. I don't know why that one didn't work. Birth to death, changes. You could do, I would have to look more into specifically what the color mapping does, but it has to do with the like actual emitter happening there. So you can mess around with this a little bit and get it to a point where the resistance is going to be like how much resistance is being put onto that emitter as it's coming up, right? Like think of like a layer pushing down on what you have there. So it's going to obviously shorten where that where it's dying out at. And the more you add that resistance on there, the harder it is. Like if you go, what is the extra? The extra looks like it adds like some kind of more of like a sporadic, like almost like a random seed to it. Twirly's pretty cool because it allows them to kind of weave in between. But yeah, so you can mess around with this and you can change the random seed here to make it look a little bit different. I would probably have less on here. So 0.05. You know, and then you would pre-comp this because obviously it's not showing there, but then you could pre-comp this and I think add it into your composition. I guess I need to have that there. Let's see. Let's pre-compose this. And see why there is no like alpha channel on it. Let me see. If I turn the alpha channel on, it is on. If I go into here, the alpha channel is on as well. So you would have to pre-compose it. You do have to have a solid underneath. And then pre-compose this. And then I would throw in the solid again. So you could just select this, copy it, go back into your main, and then paste it and drop it below. And then you will have, you should have the bubbles on here. Let me just change the color of the solid. Layer, solid settings. Let's change it like to a darker, or to like, yeah, like a dark blue. It should show up. Or even, okay. There you go. Voila, you have some quick bubbles there to make. And that way you don't have to create it, animate it, and then copy and paste it over and over. Sometimes this will run smoothly on your machine. Sometimes it might not. But you can mess around with it to kind of give that effect here. So like, and if you don't want that many bubbles on your screen, that's fine. But I would at least animate these, right, along a path. So that it looks like there's some kind of bubbles happening. Let's continue to play. Not bad there. I think that for this section we talked about last time how you can create your, I'll take this, I'll shut off the fill, and I'm going to recreate your seaweed, right? And we're going to use that bend it effect. Okay, here. So I'm going to draw a straight line and increase the width of that stroke. And then inside of here, go into the contents, down into the stroke. And then I'm going to add this wave onto it. Let's add a butt cap or a round cap onto here. And then let's add that wave length. So, not that. The amount. We want to add the amount here to create like a wave. Let's taper it a little bit. Let's add the kind of start. All you got to do is just increase this. Maybe 35 would be good. And then, so now we have like a quick piece of seaweed. And so I am going to add the CC Bend It effect. So you go into your effects, type in CC Bend It. It's under the distort as well. And not the bender, but the bend it. And then I'm going to drop that onto this layer here. And now when I go to bend it, right, it's going to bend from that area. Now, it just so happens that the start and end are at the appropriate space. Let me turn the alpha off so you can see this. And so I'm just going to move this end up here. And remember, the start anchors where that bend occurs from. And the end is going to bend it in relation to where that start position is. And so if I now, you always want the start to be anchoring at the bottom of the object, or wherever you want the bend to happen from. And then we would animate this bend, right? And like I said before, it's always got a limit there, but with the with this, you don't want it to bend too far. And so I would maybe start off at like negative 14 seems good, negative 15, animate there. And then I would move forward, hitting U so I can see that. And then I would go to positive 15, right? So it kind of just goes back and forth. Now, I would, at this point, ease that. But since we're coming down to time, I want to get to the expression real quick. Now, if you just add the loop out to this, it's going to stop here and then not do this section. Like it's not going to go from here and go back, right? It's going to start here. Then it's going to reset to this one. And it's going to not be, it's not going to be a seamless kind of back and forth. So either you can do two things, right? You can move this forward equal distance and copy and paste this keyframe there and then add that loop out expression, or you can delete that keyframe and you can alt click the bend, right, to add the expression. We're going to start typing loop and then it should pop up to loop out right there. And we'll hit enter. And then inside of here, you're going to hit the single quote, like the apostrophe. That's the word I was looking for last time. I don't know why I was saying quotation marks. Quotations are the double, and the apostrophe is just the single one, obviously. And then inside here, you're going to select ping pong. And then what that is going to do is it will just animate it this way, and then it reverses it, right? And then it just goes back and forth. Obviously, it's way too fast. I would need to... There we go. One seems good. And then you would pre-compose this entire thing. Shift Control C, pre-compose this, rename your stuff. I'm not doing this for the sake of time right now. And then you would duplicate this over and over. And then when you would move it over, and you can scale it, and you can layer them, and you could change the color of some of them if you wanted to. Like you could do a couple different variations of this and then stack them together. And that way you could have kind of the animation for your seaweed. And then what you could also do, I would maybe, yeah, that's cool. Don't let this shark really stop, because sharks, fish, they never stop swimming. They don't stop swimming to sleep. They just shut off half of their brain, which is really interesting, right? So they put themselves on like autopilot. They shut off one half of their brain and the other half keeps them moving forward because they need that motion of the water to go over their gills so they can get oxygen. So they never actually stop. So what I would do is just slowly animate him across the screen. And then I wouldn't animate the Z rotation of him because it just looks a little bit funny here when it stops. At least, like, since it stops here, I would not have that because you can tell that it's just kind of like rotating like this in Z space, and it's like obviously not a real 3D. And so you can have that and continue that as long as he continues moving over there. And the other thing I notice is that there's only 2 scenes in here. So you have to add a 3rd scene. So, so far, you know, like the design and stuff looks really cool. There's a lot to go here, right? You need to have the voiceover and all the other stuff and an extra scene in here. And then be conscious of your text, right? You need to, this is a few times we've had this discussion with the entire class about making sure that you guys are using the approved fonts. So use the approved fonts and animate these bubbles in the background, remove this, and then making sure that things are aligned, right? We want to keep those in mind throughout through all of these stuff. So I'm going to stop at Yvette's right now because we're at 8:30. And then I will go over Angelina's, Juliana's, Bear's, and Nick's on Thursday. We're going to do those. And then we're going to do the participation questions and we're going to jump into the reels. So I'm going to just kind of change around how we're doing this a little bit. And then I will either over the weekend, what I'll do is I'll give you guys feedback on your 3D animated logos of the hockey logos. So other than that, you guys are doing a really good job on this project in particular. It's definitely more fun when you can pick your topic, right? And something that you're interested in. And everyone's facts seem to be doing really well. I'm excited to watch the rest of them on Thursday. And keep up all that hard work. You know, the more you add into this, more visual interest you have, and the cooler the animation is going to be, right? But let's wrap it up here. And I will see you guys on Thursday. And you guys can write me if you want to with any other questions. Have a good night.